We'll just get cracking, shall we?
Let's just raw dog it and jump in.
What could go wrong? Oh, it's me.
It's always you, Dave.
Right, we're recording. Yeah, that is recording in the right place.
We ready?
We're ready. Yeah. Let's do it. Let's go. Feeling good.
This week's Magic Movie Podcast is brought to you by Vive. Tastes almost as good as Fanta.
Is this fake? Is this Aldi? Is this like the Aldi fake one?
Love it. Yeah, man. It's like, honestly, I'm not saying that because they're paying me. I'm just a fan.
Good, because they ain't paying you.
Aldi pays.
Aldi give me money.
Aldi, just let me skip to the front of the till, the queue. Fantastic. That'd be enough for me. Just even like a limited use thing. Dude, even half the queue. Look, me.
I know we're live, but I've just gone back to the gym thing. I tell you what, man. If you're looking to get the food right as well, Aldi have this like selection of like protein yogurts and stuff. Because obviously, like protein's the best thing you do. Like, body works hardest to break down protein, and they have puddings, and the puddings give you like 20 grams of protein, and it's not delicious.
Nicola had one, and I was like, and she was like, "It's okay." I had some.
That's like, exactly what it is. Like it's passable.
What is that aftertaste? Is that protein? Is that what protein is? I don't like protein. I'm not having any more protein. Fucking protein. Give me sugar, fat, carbs, 100%. But
the trouble is, Ross. They're all like, it's like with protein shakes and stuff. They're all milk based. So I've got to watch it.
Oh yeah, of course, for you and your sensitive stomach.
Dairy.
But that's it. But like,
say it like I'm a snowflake. Your sensitive stomach. Your liberal stomach.
Oh man. Sorry. Okay. Podcast.
Serious face. We're doing a film from the 1930s. Very nice, Ross. We need to channel our inner critic. We're serious podcasters.
I can't. You drew attention to it. You looked right into the camera lens, Sam. You fucked me.
Serious.
No, it's too late. It's fine. I'll just do the bit, and I was gonna get some backing in music, but I don't.
Just fucking get. Oh, come on.
I really enjoy how angry Sam gets when I delay him even a second.
He's just sitting there. He's sitting there like he's about to fucking like Daniel Day-Lewis.
Thinking, man.
He's a fucking look at him.
Your face. Anyway,
7 years ago. Nope, wrong speech.
This is where I talk, so you two need to be quiet. You can tell me off about this a different time, all right? This is like those series of
to be or not
never
to be.
Do the intro.
Dang it! No, not that one.
Hello, and welcome to this feature-length presentation starring Sanford Hitchcock.
Nice.
Have you got one for us?
Rostaban word loader. Yeah.
Oh my god! This is almost as bad as when Sam said, "Dave, you're naturally lithe," and Ross, I guess you're trying.
Exactly.
Am I just the afterthought, you guys?
And I fucked that intro up.
Wow! It was such a high
imaginary movie podcast.
It was such a high, and then it cratered so fast.
Fuck.
I mean, just unbelievable. You should have just moved on. You should have just, if you haven't got anything good to say. I know. Anyway, well, my name is Sam, and join me as I make my friends watch slow black and white movies from the 30s.
And I'm Ross, and this podcast was recorded in the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland, the Free State. Jesus.
There's a bit of history here. So this week, is this the oldest movie we've done?
Believe so. Yes.
Don't think we've done a 30s movie before. We watched the 1936 or possibly 37, depending on where you're reading. Sabotage, the Alfred Hitchcock movie. Not to be confused with the 1942 Hitchcock movie Saboteur, or the other 1936 movie Secret Agent, which is based off something else, whereas this is based off a book called Secret Agent. Just to set everything so we're all clear on that.
We're all clear. We're all clear.
So luckily, I didn't mix it up for any of those movies, Dave.
Oh,
do you want to know what movie I mixed it up for?
Yeah, I do.
Go on, let's hear it. What one do you think
I want to hear it? That's what you asked me if I want to hear it.
Sorry.
I do want to hear it.
So I didn't mix it up for any of those movies. I mixed it up for a movie that doesn't exist. So for our listeners listening at home who haven't joined the Imaginary Move podcast Discord yet, we were chatting in the Discord, and I was like, "Oh my God, Sam, what have you made us watch?" And so Dave shared the link for the movie, or Sam did, but it was an Amazon Prime link. And when you share links, obviously, it sort of generates a thumbnail. Now, the thumbnail generated the text. There was an image, and on the image was the text, "The Alone Woman," or "The Woman Alone." And I was like,
yeah, you're right.
Oh, okay. So there's me searching on Amazon Prime and YouTube for a solid 45, 50 minutes for "The Woman Alone." And this is why, Sam, I was giving you such a hard time. Like, oh, geez, pick a harder, more obscure fucking movie to pick, Sam. God almighty. And then, like I said, because it's "The Woman Alone," that just picked up all the misogyny. Just all the misogyny on YouTube. Fucking, get chicks, women alone. This is what it means. 20 signs of what a woman alone means. Blah, blah, blah. I'm
oh my goodness.
I swallowed the red pill purely through fucking exposure to this.
So are you now a pickup artist, Ross? Is that what you're trying to tell us here? Is this like you've signed on to a 3-week course?
I could teach you guys how to, pick up a woman and have her pay your direct debits in 2 weeks.
Fantastic. I could do with someone paying my direct debit.
Wow.
Do you know what's funny, Ross? Is that I'd seen the poster, because the thumbnail's the American poster, and it hadn't even clicked with me that it doesn't say Sabotage on it. Because that's the US. That's the title they what they called the movie in the US.
Oh, I see. I see.
So, but I'm not sure why that's the thumbnail. Just other than it because it is.
You'd think they would pick whoever did that on Wikipedia. I mean, maybe we could fix that as to be helpful.
Have you tried to edit things on Wikipedia, Sam?
I do all the time.
You need 3 PhDs to do that.
But again, if I just read Dave's post, and Dave's going to be lapping this up, but if I had simply read what Dave typed, but honestly, the amount of shit he spews, can you really blame me?
The amount of shit. Hold on, Dave.
Change the very foundation of your personality by actually reading messages that people who you call your friends send you.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with the amount of shit, but the amount of shit that Dave spews on our Discord. Join our Discord. There's a link in the description. Join the Discord.
You too can get covered in this audible shit.
We're really selling it. I mean, yes. So this is my.
David Newell is a carrot.
A derpy derp. Starring Rob Schneider.
I hope you didn't join this episode.
Fuck you, you'll join.
I hope you didn't join this episode looking for a intellectual deep dive into the filmmaking from the 1930s, because you're not going to get that at all.
I think anyone who's listened to this podcast before knows full well what they're looking for.
But maybe there's some people who haven't. Maybe they're just stumbling onto this and then they've already turned it off. So
let's talk about.
They've long switched off.
Let's talk about this movie in terms of its fame and its credibility then, because that's interesting. I would be interested if people just stumble across this because they're really into the 1936 movie Sabotage, which off top I didn't think is a bad movie at all, but of Alfred Hitchcock's 50 or 60 movies that he made, this probably isn't in the top 10 for recognition. I wouldn't have said. No,
not for recognition. I mean, this is one of his this was my pick because I like Hitchcock movies, and we had one of the conditions was for our round of picks is a film we hadn't seen before. So let's go for it. But this is interesting because it's one of his earlier movies. This is when he was still in Britain making movies in the UK. And...
Do you want to know how early it was, Sam? I looked into this earlier.
Go on.
Alfred Hitchcock had made 24 movies before this.
Wow. So, which is still quite
early.
Yeah. But also because he was so fucking prolific. I mean, I think in 1939, from memory, I think he goes to Hollywood, and then we're making the bigger budget.
He's making bigger movies, isn't he? I think
this is
more of a symptom of the film industry in Britain, especially at the time, where and studio movies as well. Like your studio's putting out 7, 8, 9, 10 movies a year. Like, so director is maybe making 3 or 4 movies a year if there's, prolific.
Huge amount of turnover. So for me, it was like a chance to look back at a filmmaker who is very famous and everything, but a film that we wouldn't necessarily have come across, or you wouldn't choose to watch. I mean, I think this might be one of our least downloaded episodes. It's in the podcast history.
I think that there's some tough competition there, Sam. We've done a lot of shit.
That's quite a claim.
In the sea of unlistened.
I think all of our Star Trek episodes, all of our ramble casts about nothing.
The ramble casts are surprisingly popular, actually. I'll have that, but I just think there's,
and yet we choose to do Sabotage, a movie 90 years old.
Yeah, but the thing is, and this is why I love doing this podcast, is because it's our podcast. We can do what we like, and we can, and as I can subject you to watch these movies. Ross, you're making us watch The Green Mile at the end of this run, and good lord,
do you know, I feel
you can watch this movie 4 times by the time you finish watching The Green Mile, Ross.
And also, there's no, it's, we're not going to be depressed by the fucking end of it. I mean, Jesus Christ. So I just think I really like going outside of our comfort zone, which we're happy to do fairly regularly. But as I said, I think we've maybe 40s, Harvey's maybe the last old film that we did.
Yes, yeah.
Podcast. We are doing another one soon. We're doing Sunset Boulevard, aren't we? Which is 40s.
I'll start us off. I really struggled with this movie.
Okay.
And I want to start off by saying, like, reading the description, reading the wrong name. Woman alone. Oh, yeah. Intrigue.
After 4 hours,
once you found the misogynistic videos on YouTube.
Yeah, we can't really sort of chastise Sam anymore for watching the wrong Terminator when I just go off the movie poster. But like you mentioned, Sam, we've done Harvey in the past, and to be honest, watching It's a Wonderful Life, I was actually going into this with high hopes, because I was, what am I gonna experience? Do you know what I mean? That you don't get in movies anymore. And I have to say, maybe the 30s genre isn't for me. Really, really didn't like it. The thing that stood out for me the most was the main sort of antagonist. The guy who sends off his nephew, grandson.
It's very unclear, isn't it?
It's really unclear what that relationship is.
Brother-in-law.
Homolka?
He's his brother-in-law, confusingly.
Is he?
The wife, it's the wife's brother.
The wife's brother. Okay, right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there, yes.
And anyway, he was just...
I get your family tree out if you'd like, Ross, but I promise you he's his brother-in-law. And the child also.
It's yeah,
he was just terrible. He was just a terrible performer. And, like Alfred Hitchcock, you've heard that name. If you've watched the movie, you know who Alfred Hitchcock is. And Dave said you've watched, he's done 24 movies before this. And it just struck me as so out of place that, a director as talented and as dedicated as someone like Alfred Hitchcock would cast someone who's like, this is like secondary school level acting. Like some of this was just poor. Some of the shots as well, and you could forgive that for maybe he's finding his sort of style. But some of the shots that were done as well, like those when the main character and that other dude who's hired him to blow stuff up, and it's set against the zoo backdrop, but the whole scene is shot from their backs. And I get they're trying to convey, this subterfuge, sabotage, these ne'er-do-wells, but do a different camera angle, or have them with their backs to the aquarium or whatever, so you can see their faces, see the acting. I just all throughout this movie, I was like, why would you choose to do that?
I think one of these, going back to the 1930s, you are right, Ross. Like, there's a certain aesthetic to the movies being made. There's a certain pace. And even 1940s movies are different in terms of the sort of things that industry professionals are making and the sort of things that the public want. it all changes in the 50s and the 60s. And do you know what I mean? Even if you watch 70s movie, it's like wildly different to a 90s movie.
Yeah.
Just in the very way that everything's set up. So that I think that is a very fair comment. And this does feel a little bit like Hitchcock's kind of feeling his way around some of the suspense stuff that he would later become really, really famous for.
Renowned for.
With other movies. And I think a lot of that like actual professional filmmaking stuff in this is good. I think something just to remember is I suspect the reason that a lot of those close shots are quite static and maybe some of the poorer ones is the camera's the size of fucking double-decker bus. Like, do you know what I mean? It's not like nowadays or even like 40, 50 years ago. Like, there's no Steadicam. Like, it's...
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's just a limitation.
Fair.
I also felt the same way with some of the first thing that struck me actually was how, like, difficult to see anything on the screen is in especially the first section when the power's off, the lights are off. And obviously that's intentional. But I think it's something that the medium of black and white, when you turn the lights off, it's like, oh, now I just can't see anything. Like, it's not. There's something about that I find it really difficult to even follow what was happening on the screen.
The easiest way for me to summarize this, because I was thinking about it, and like because we all love video games, and I'm going to talk to the medium of video games, but I felt like it's like when you try and play, you know, an Atari game from the 60s or 70s or whatever, and you're like, this, I get it, that it's good for its time, but I cannot enjoy this from the mid 2020s. I can't enjoy this. Fair play to you, but no.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is like, it's really, really hard to watch old movies. I like the experience of it because I'm into that. Like, I'm into the aesthetic. I'm into the slower pace. I'm into the and I think I've said this many, many times before, but it's like, if you go back and watch Citizen Kane, you spend the whole time going, all right, this is fine.
Okay,
this is fine. Like, this is just it's fine. It's kind of interesting, but if you don't understand, and I don't mean this in a condescending way whatsoever, but if you don't know the context of how this movie was made, and all of the other films that were made around it, which don't employ all of these techniques like pans and zooms and all that, then you can kind of look. Then if you don't have that context, it's hard to see where this or any movie of the time is compelling or new or whatever. I'm not sure that this movie is up there in terms of like employing stuff that's really, really groundbreaking or anything like that. But to me, it's interesting because it shows it's like a snapshot in time of where Hitchcock was in the 30s making films in Britain. And when you then transfer, as you said, Dave, all those classic Hitchcock things, the tension, all of this stuff into a more advanced medium, because we've got better technology and all this stuff, but more also money. More money. He becomes a more accomplished filmmaker in itself. So I think I almost wanted to go back and watch like two movies from the 1930s to compare
it to that. Yeah, that's fair.
In context, in the contemporary movies, and what are they like? Because there are, like, I think a couple of examples. So if I actually go on, you respond if you want, and then I can come back to that.
Well, I was going to say, I watched Boris Karloff's Mummy 2 or 3 months ago, and that's nice. 19. I know, I'm such a fucking nerd.
Did you do that by accident, thinking it was the Brendan Fraser one, or
no? I was. I'd be reading something about Boris Karloff, and then I was like, oh yeah, the Boris Karloff Mummy movies. They were like, anyway, it's actually a bit of a crap, like pulpy horror movie, but from the 1930s. That's from 33, and it's got a similar sort of thing where, because we're watching movies, especially in the 2020s, like every movie has got to like can razzle dazzle you from minute one. Do you know what I mean? I think that's because of what movie audiences demand. Like the Marvelification, we've got to have 75 9/11s in every single movie. All the viewers' brains will just die. Team America made that joke 15 years ago. I think it's okay. I think it's okay for me to then appropriate that and say,
you must never joke about 9/11.
It's 100.
There's a real comment there in the 1930s, because we're not competing with TV at this point. We aren't competing with like streaming TV, and we aren't competing with other movies. Really, we've just got cinemas. You have to go to a cinema, and you watch what's on.
Your attention is grabbed.
Exactly. You've not got mobile phones. Like, you're probably dying of dysentery or whatever, and poverty everywhere. But I'm just like now. But do you know what I mean? So a movie can be a lot slower and a lot more methodical like this. The Mummy's very similar, where every time your brain, because we're used to watching modern movies, your brain says there should be an action scene here. There's going to be a fight. This is a bit where he kills someone. The movie doesn't do it. It kind of like continues to go at the same pace, and the characters under and overreact at different times you wouldn't expect. And it's to do with the way that we're making movies and the way that we expect to ask actors to behave when they're doing things. And this movie is very, very similar to that, in that we never really get any of the juicy kind of like exposition you kind of want. You want to know, who are these guys? What are they trying to blow up? What are they trying to do? Who's this guy? Why do they own a cinema?
Yeah.
Where's this woman's parents? And she's looking after her kid brother. Like, how are they married? He's much older than she is.
I was waiting for, and where does the Irish bomber come in? When does he arrive? And fucking here, looky here with me potatoes. Ho, I'll get you English. I was like, oh, here we go. When's this guy going to show up?
I think this predated that as a trope. I think, Ross, a little bit. I'm not saying obviously there weren't troubles in Ireland at the time. Obviously,
yes.
What I'm saying is that I think that whereas in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, like if someone was a terrorist, you're probably Irish in film and TV, or Russian.
Well,
I think that this predated that as like a film trope. I suspect.
Yeah. Let's talk about this. The context is, because I think this is where there is something interesting. Now everyone else has fallen asleep and switched off. That's fine, but it's okay, guys. You're trapped.
This isn't for you.
Okay, we're about to have 75 9/11s to wake everyone up.
Yeah. No, so I think if let's think about where we are in 1936, the Nazis are on the rise, and fascism is on the rise, and like the propaganda machine is pumping out all this stuff about like Uber alles and like Germany and the fascist states are going for it. And so for me, this is an interesting snapshot to see what the anxieties of the time were. Like the movie is about basically a German, although they don't necessarily call him, they don't say he's from Germany, that he's a Nazi, but it's a German guy who's coming here to like cause what feels a little bit like kind of like a light terror. It's a little bit just, we're going to break some windows or something. Like
it felt to me like more of a sort of like reference to World War One, so more of a reference to the sort of 1900s to the 1920s when monarchs and things were getting blown up quite a lot, and so it felt like more of kind of like a Balkan state kind of thing. Obviously, like you said, Sam, in the context of Germany and Italy being fascist states, and the Civil War in Spain and things like that. Obviously, like terror attacks, as we call them now, like were more and more and more common. But it feels like the Archduke Ferdinand was like a real global event that people will have, moviegoers will have heard about, because it was so. So they'll be like, oh yes, they're going to try and come over here. They're going to try and assassinate the king or whoever. Again, the movie doesn't really go into that, and then attempt to like use that to further some political thing. But again, the movie doesn't really go into that.
No, and I think you're completely right. But they're the tropes of the time, aren't they? And that's where I think just
they are the 9/11s of the time.
If we were thinking, if we were had a bit more time, be able to explore 1930s in movies and really dig into that, you'd maybe see these themes coming up, because you've got such a tumultuous time, and the interwar period was people were reeling from the end of the First World War, and we were getting dragged into what looked like the Nazis were starting to really kick shit up. So also all this is happening. I think that's where I think it's an interesting snapshot. Now, I think, as you've pointed out, Dave, it also just doesn't really like land any of it. It's quite happy just to say, well, this guy's German and that's enough. And we are going to mess with we're kind of enhance the anxieties perhaps that already exist, but it's not laying the groundwork for anything necessarily new, or it's not trying to lead on anything. It's more just kind of softly hinting, and that's maybe a result of the kind of the nature of censorship and all this stuff at the time, and having to be a little bit more careful.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. I didn't think of that.
But I think there's a lot of value in just thinking about where we were in 1936, in the same way that when people look back to the 2010s and 2020s, and they'll be like, what the fucking Jesus is with all of these superheroes? Like, what was going on as a world psyche, or at least, you know, a Western European American psyche, that we needed fucking superheroes? Like, and obviously they'll analyze it as, oh, well, they needed people to save them from the impending climate disaster or whatever, you know, whatever fucking joys we've got coming ahead of us. And I think that's an interesting, as I say, it's a snapshot on the 1930s as well.
There's also the context of the film industry at the time, and the fact that, why does anyone ever make movies? To make money. So you want something that's going to be like this, like I said, Saturday afternoon watch. You know, you go, it's entertaining enough, it's interesting, but it's not like particularly scary, not particularly violent. Sort of a happy ending, but not really. It's a weird sort of like. So let's talk about the plot of this movie for a little bit, because the relationship between the detective and the lead, Sylvia Sydney, Mrs. I don't think we ever get a first name of her in this movie. It's just Mrs. whatever
Mrs.
it is.
Verloc. Yeah.
Verloc, yeah.
Sylvia Sydney, and then is it John Lodger, I think, plays the detective, the fruit seller?
Yeah, that's right. It kind of feels like you know, that Simpsons bit. It kind of feels like scenes missing. Like the ending of this movie really feels like, do you know what I mean? They're like, oh, they're gonna run away together. He's gonna save her. I'm like, they've had 4 conversations and she was rude to him in 3 of them.
I looked down at my phone, like, you know, when that scene was like the very last scene was playing, and I was like, oh, now they're going to get away and there's going to be a little suspense. Nope, roll credits. Oh, we're done. No. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. And that feels again. I don't know how much of that is me as a modern movie watcher. Like, I'm expecting it to be a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more developed. You know, because this was a time when, you know, women's suffrage was relatively new. Like, we'd only just legally said that women were people, like really, like 10 years ago. So maybe part of it is that this woman's expected to fall for this handsome man who likes her, regardless of the fact that they don't seem to have any chemistry, or doesn't seem to even particularly like him. Doesn't even seem to particularly like a husband either. And how much of that is just that's the reserved way that a British woman especially would be expected to behave, and therefore that's what we see in the film. It's hard to break it down, because I think that Sylvia Sydney is the female lead. I think I really liked her in this. I liked some of the rest of the cast a lot less. I didn't really think the detective guy was particularly great. Like you said, Ross the Kid was a child actor, and some things change and some things stay the same, and child actors can still sometimes be really shit. But, you know, it varied, and we maybe could have done more. But I don't know if I'm looking at that like I could write more, because I've been watching movies and I'll just crib from all that.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think, I mean, it's the movie making is probably in its late teens by this point, you know, in terms of like where maybe a little bit older than that even, but just like
we'd had about 10 years of movies with sound as well, hadn't we? And about 10 years before that of silent movies.
We are quite established, aren't we? I think, but we're still learning. I think you see that in this. You see, and I think the pace is such a big thing. There's a great stat about the average length of shots in movies, and I think in the 30s it was about 12 seconds per shot, and today it's about 2.5-3 seconds per shot.
Wow.
But the average movie length of this
Scorsese, and it's like 14 minutes a shot.
Yeah, exactly. But average movie lengths remain the same, around 90 minutes. So what you're getting is a lot fewer shots, and the same length of movie. So I think so much of it is coming up against the fact that we know what Scorsese movie. We've got all this learning in the meantime.
100%. But you may go on, Sam.
Go on. Sorry. Go on.
I was just, it goes back to that point you made earlier, and like I didn't even consider that when you said you need to look at it within the context of the decade, and it's easy to sort of like misconstrue that as an understatement as well, because like you just said, we don't have all the nuances, we don't have like the journey we've gotten to the 2020s in 1936. So all these things, like, oh God, why would you make that decision? It's because these are the they're the giants that everyone else stood upon. It's. And to be fair, it was good. But on the other point, then, when we look at other movies from a similar period, like we mentioned, it's a Wonderful Life and Harvey. Harvey was such an enjoyable movie watching experience. I enjoyed it infinitely more than I was expecting to, and I was, like I said before, I was hoping to have. Maybe I expected too much. I was hoping to have a similar experience with this, and that's why I felt like, God, this is such a letdown. Because, like, is there even 10 years between them? And it's just
49, 48, 49, Harvey. Just over 10 years, I think, Ross. But yeah, you're right. And also, I think it's worth remembering that this is a suspense movie. So
yeah,
this is kind of like, honestly, all the forgettable movies that I can't even think of naming any of them. But every year there are some movies that come out that are like just like banal, like it's a suspense movie based on whatever the thing that's in now is, starring some people you might have heard of. Kind of, yeah. In 12 months, you'll have forgotten about it, and like and you'll have moved on, and you won't be able to name any of the actors or anything like that. And it's interesting, the movies that come down to us, and it'd be interesting to know whether this movie, which is a bit of a wanky critic darling. I'm going to justify that sentence in a minute. Where this appears on loads and loads of like best British movies of all time lists. Wow. And I'm not saying that's unfair. I didn't think this was a bad movie, like especially in the context of the 1930s. But like, I think if it hadn't been made by Alfred Hitchcock, who went on to become one of the most prolific and influential filmmakers of his era, like I think. Suddenly no one's talking. I don't even think you'd be able to find this. And this appears on loads of lists. I did try and look on the Telegraph, but it's all fucking behind paywalls. So I'm like, fuck you then. I won't enjoy your journalism.
You're goddamn right, Dave. You're goddamn right.
But to your point, and moving back to the plot of this, I think there is a lot that is not particularly well explained, such as like so this guy's going out with this woman. The baddie's going out with this woman. She's got a brother. Seems a bit strange. Like, seems a bit of an odd pairing. He seems a lot older than her, and they don't seem to have any scenes of like affection, or we don't really understand their relationship. I don't think. I
think again, a lot of this is us looking at it from a 2020s or even early, whatever, like our modern lens. And if you look back, obviously, because 80% of the young men in Europe had been killed 20 years ago, like, there probably were quite a lot of women married to significantly older men for very realistic reasons of there were not any other men. Also, like, people getting married, to get married. Oh, he owns a cinema, and that's fine. That's enough. And obviously, her having the brother kind of implies, again, this is all subtext, but kind of implies that the parents aren't around, so she needs somewhere to live and someone to look after her, because you do. So she married this older man. They seem to like each other, I guess.
Well, we don't see any of that. I'm saying. I don't think we.
They kind of do. I honestly, I thought that he was her boss, and again, part of that might be me looking at this marriage from a 2020s view of what a marriage should be, and not maybe what like a 1930s view of what a marriage should be, where he kind of is her boss because that's how the gender dynamic worked then.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying that that's maybe a thing that viewers at the time would have found very normal.
I honestly thought, right, like, from their dynamic, I honestly thought they were brother and sister. I genuinely, I didn't see anything to pick up. So that's what I thought. The kid was her son, because like there was one scene where she's talking to the detective fella and she said like, "Oh, she came back from America. I thought the husband died in America or something. That's why she came back here."
I mean, it's just. I think again, yeah, it isn't clear. For all intents and purposes, he may as well be her lodger, and that was the thing that was like, do they have to be married? It's like, actually, like, does that make any difference to the story? And it doesn't. It doesn't. The only thing that's different is later on when he just casually admits what he's done. Oh yeah, I killed your brother. It's fine.
Yeah,
But just think about it. Just think about it. Nazis are great. We love them. It's fine. Everything's fine. Like there's all these.
I like
just finish point. Sorry. There's all of these like points where they could have leaned on the fact, or they could have again shown us there's a bit more of a relationship, but they don't.
The brother dying bit is like, obviously that's the big thing in this movie, really. Isn't it? Well,
that's the culmination.
Apart from the second explosion that kills some people, but the first one especially. The Ex Machina explosion at the end we'll get to. The Deus Ex Machina explosion that just solves all the problems and we can move on with our lives. I really liked, again, this is what Hitchcock's really great at, is the suspension, this is the tension of like, we know there's a bomb in there. We know there's a bomb in that parcel. We know that the kid's got to get it to this place for 1:45. We also know he's a child and that he doesn't really think it's that serious, obviously. And so like it being quite a lighthearted, like this snake oil salesman like brushing his teeth and putting stuff in his hair, I actually thought was pretty funny. I really enjoyed that bit. Yeah. Mainly because the kid isn't asked to do much other than literally be manhandled. You couldn't treat a child like this in a modern movie. And like up until the point where he gets on the bus and you're kind of like, well, why can't he get on the bus? And it's because film's really, really flammable. But that was fun enough in of itself, like a real thing that they had, that you couldn't just take film on.
I know, but it's just so outside of anything we would ever have to experience. It's really good that the movie
bothers to explain it.
Yeah, thank God.
Because otherwise it's like, well, why can't he go on the bus? Why can't he go on the bus?
I forget. Why can't he go on the bus?
Oh, as the public service, broadcast said. Remember, don't take films on a bus.
Remember, when you're on foot, you're okay with film.
Like there's just so many, but
it's to do with the flammable nature of everything, Ross. Where like if you had a fire on a modern bus, like most of the stuff in there is fairly inflammable. And like, if you have a fire on one of these buses that probably still has gas lighting on the inside of it, the whole thing is going to go up in a fireball if you drop a cigarette. Like the whole thing, 20 people are going to be dead. So I guess like you have to be a bit stricter about flammable materials on buses in that situation.
But your wider point though about the tension that's built up. Now, this is a point where I think we need to maybe step back and just say, like, all of the techniques that he's using to get us to feel the tension, I think are actually really good, and I think probably quite innovative as well. We get a lot of mixing of like almost like a ticking clock into the score, into the music in this, which I think is quite interesting. And there's also lots of like the way that we get the close up of the package quite a lot as well. Like all of these things that I think where it really shines is the editing. And I think if you once you start to notice that stuff, you think how deliberate it is. I think the tension and that scene especially is the best bit of the film, isn't it? You're going up, and from some reading, it looks like that was a really controversial choice as well. To blow up a bus and for this kid to die, and the puppy dies. Like all these people that are on the bus in the 1930s in an environment of rising tension and militancy and all this other stuff. Like fucking the 30s was an absolute shit show when it comes to.
It's a good punch. It's funny actually. Hitchcock was, I think, quoted as saying that he kind of wished he hadn't done that part of the film.
Right.
He was famously squeamish about violence and blood, and like for a guy who made loads of movies about murder. Honestly, like he was famously like he would faint at the sight of blood. When they filmed Psycho, this is like the fucking front page of the internet trivia here. When they filmed Psycho, which is in black and white, obviously, they had to use chocolate sauce for the blood when there's the stabbing in the shower, because if he'd been on set and it had been red, he would have fainted. Like apparently he was that bad. And he said that he wished they hadn't killed the kid in this. But it's based on a book, so again, you can't really put that down to Hitchcock so much as he couldn't think of another way to have that like effective point of the story without killing the kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, it would mute to the ending, wouldn't it, if it was just a bus full of people we haven't met or heard of?
Yeah, yeah. But let's not forget to just get a little bit more serious for a second. 2 years after this film comes out, we literally have Crystal Nacht. We have the night of the Nazis going around smashing Jewish shop windows and terrorizing. Like, I think that really, it heightens for me even more the tension to know that what's happening in this period. Again, if you go back to the fucking actual terror and brutality that's being bandied about or across Europe, like, and then so to do this, to have this massive explosion and to have this traumatic part of the movie, not that it's predicting anything, but more that it really does reflect the time that they were living in. And I think, like, that's quite a brave choice to go that far and to push the audience that far and then to drag them out, because I think we're getting to the point that there's not really an awful lot that happens in the movie up to this point. Like, it's a pretty slow burn, and you kind of need the payoff. Think about it in terms of your movie matinee and all this stuff. Like, people want they want the ending just like they do now.
It feels like this is a really short movie. It's 72 minutes, I think.
Our shortest movie, I think, 1 hour 16. Yeah.
And I hate myself for saying this because I love the idea of a 72-minute movie.
You wish it was longer.
Yeah, no. Well, I wish there was more.
Have we ever said that?
There's no pleasing you.
I wish we got more of the establishing. Like, I wish we got more with this family unit to like understand what their relationships are like. Maybe this guy doesn't really like this kid very much, and we get more of that. Do you know what I mean? Maybe he slaps him around the head when the sister's not around, and even just one scene of that, and then when he sends him off, you then are like, oh, is he sending? Is he doing it because he doesn't really care about this kid, or you know what I mean, or can it all be tied up in like? I just think the pathos of what this guy wants, because he's not even like a hardcore like socialist or fascist or whatever. He just needs the money, so he's doing it because like he needs
a capitalist.
Yeah,
well, not even that, Ross. He's just poor.
It's shadowy, isn't it? And we get you mentioned it earlier, Ross. The weird scene where they're talking at the aquarium and they're facing. I mean, I had to put YouTube shitty subtitles.
I had to put the captions on,
to try and understand what the fuck they were saying. It's like, what the. But I mean, that's old movies, I guess. But yeah, we definitely do. We definitely do need more of that. We also need, I think, a bit more of the ending, where at the end of this movie, as you say, the Deus Ex Machina, like, oh, everything's fine, and this police officer who's a fucking idiot. I can't remember when Mrs. Verloc says he's dead. He's dead. And then seconds later, explosion. And he's like, did she say it before or after the explosion? Oh, well, it doesn't matter anyway.
That's lunch.
Policing was not the same thing in the 1930s, to be fair.
I mean, it's not much better now, but yeah, like, fucking hell.
It's also frustrating how it's not a movie where, sometimes in a mystery movie, it's a really good place to be when you, the viewer, know what everyone's doing, but no one else does. Do you know what I mean? So you know what the police are doing and you know what the bad guys are doing, but they don't know what each other are doing or about each other. Like, that's a fascinating place to be because it allows you to like lay a path for the viewer to kind of figure things out, just before they happen, and kind of maybe see a way that the movie goes to. I know that your wife loves this kind of movie, and mine reads.
She refused to watch this with me, just to be clear.
That's fair.
She chose wisely.
I always offer. I'm always like, she's like, "What are you watching this week?" And I'm like, "Well, it's 1 hour 16 minutes long, but it's from 1936." It's like, I'm out. That's it.
Yeah. But like, because we don't really get any of that, because we meet the greengrocer, the detective, within about 6-7 minutes of having met him, we know he's a detective, and then about 5 minutes after that, everyone else also knows he's a detective.
Yeah.
Like we see them, the husband sneak into the cinema at the very beginning, the very first shot. And again, 3 minutes later, everyone else knows that he's the one who did the sabotage, and it's kind of like it would be nice from the master of suspense for maybe any of these characters to like sit down and figure something out, or like, you know what I mean, have a conversation like, are we being watched? Are we being followed? And then, yeah, you are being watched and you are being followed, rather than everyone kind of being, you know, where he drags the detective down into the room and he's like, oh dear, I appear to have fallen through this window. And it's like, what are we doing? I just feel like,
and they let him walk out.
You didn't hear us plotting, did you? No. Promise I didn't.
He gets to go away.
Pinky swear.
He gets to go away and be like, shit, I just saw them, without them being like, oh, he's a detective from Scotland Yard. He's probably investigating us because we're all criminals. You're a criminal. I'm a criminal. Yeah, we're all criminals, you see. Maybe we shouldn't have met at your residence. Perhaps.
And talk so loudly with the window open. London. Yeah, like, I mean, come on, guys. Like, you're terrible criminals.
It's an internal window as well. Coup? It's into like a service corridor in the house.
It's just your first coup. It is. There's lots of weirdness. I think again, you know, some of it's because of the time, but also some of it's because it's a fucking cheap movie. Like, as you say, Dave, it was rolled out and it probably wasn't that huge budget, and it was a British movie, so we're not really hitting the highs of production value or anything like that. But I think it's one of those films where you end up you end up with probably more questions at the end than you than you perhaps want. I mean, we've mentioned like the ending, and there's also a thing of just how the detective just all of a sudden being in love with this woman. I mean, yeah, she's pretty, and yeah, like we've never had a moment. We've never had a moment where they're really like coming together in a way that feels meaningful. We have a couple of bits where they're just jibing at each other, and maybe that was courting in the 30s. I'm probably quite right, because most men in the 30s are probably horrible and lecherous. But
the general setup seems to be he's glib and overly familiar, and she's rude and dismissive, and that seems to be that. Right, she's into me. Fantastic. She's being rude.
It does sound like courting in the past, doesn't it? Like, this is what men were obnoxious, and women need to be dickheads to try and fend off all of their constant advances from the fucking greengrocer. Like, Jesus,
some things change and some things stay the same.
Although the first scene you see with those two folks when they interact, because obviously the power's gone out, people are looking for refunds of the cinema tickets. And this guy, you first see him like talking to the people. You're not getting your money back. Here's why. Completely understandable why you're not getting your money back. And she's like, no, you are going to get your money. And him seemingly having no interest, fucking vested interest in this business. No, listen, hey, shut up. You'll keep your money. No, we're going to refund them. Listen here, dollface. You're going to keep that money, see?
Yeah. It's also a weird, like, the dad, the dad husband, and the greengrocer,
the brother dad,
the brother dad, and the husband, the greengrocer. They don't really interact. Like, if this was a 70s movie, you would get like the husband taking a baseball bat to this guy and screaming at him, "You trying to fuck my wife?" Yeah. Like, you would get that scene, but you don't in this movie because it's the 1936. Can you imagine? It would be a different kind of thing. We're going to take a hit out on this guy because he keeps flirting with my wife when he's selling vegetables, and I can't have that.
Also, hang on, stop 1 second, guys. Lock that window. Why? Well,
hey, because we're plotting here, man.
In fact, Adolf. His name's not Adolf.
In the book, it is, though. In the book, it is.
Yeah. In fact,
they changed that because they were like, a little bit too close to.
It's Floda.
Maybe we could remove this window in the inside of the house, which seems only really to be there so that somebody who's concealed in that corridor over there could spy on us. Like, at least a painting with the eyes cut out is a bit more, it's more traditional.
Somebody call a handyman.
It'd be more sabotagey if he like walked into the room with a newspaper with the eye holes cut out.
Yeah.
Big Groucho Marx mustache.
Love it.
Who's that man? He looks familiar.
No, he's got a mustache. He's fine. He's trustworthy. He's cool.
He's probably German too. I
did enjoy this movie, I suppose, but like not
Well, can I talk about one scene that I really did enjoy, and then we can wrap up.
Thanks, Sam.
Yes, it's just very quickly, Ross. I know you've got things to do. You're a busy man. And you're busy too, listener. You don't want to sit around for another 4 or 5 minutes while we talk
While
about
you do this bit.
Listen
No,
to Sam wank off the fucking Sabotage from 1936. Come on,
let's
Sam.
drag it out, boys. Let's drag it out, right? So the bit when
You're getting better at that deep, lecherous voice. So you're
yeah, we got. I'm learning from you,
fucking
Ross. I'm learning from
dirty
you.
girl.
No.
Gotcha. I gotcha, bitch.
Don't ruin the deep voice for me, Ross, please. So yes, this movie. So the bit when she knows what's happened, and she's got the knife. You know, she's contemplating whether or not she's going to stab him, because he's talking. I'm again really oddly triumphant about the fact that he just killed and knowingly killed her
Where's
brother.
my salad? Oh, the boy who just died usually gets it for me. Curse him.
He's acting like a right dick, and it feels discordant. It feels like it doesn't really fit in with everything we've seen. But anyway, the scene as is, and I just, there's a lot of technical stuff here about the editing, the way they snap up to her face, and even the bit where she's standing over the meat and she's kind of cutting it, and you see her hand, you know, kind of like tempted, and and she recoils and there's a lot of really, really nice close up action that I think probably for me is builds more tension in this scene than we get even up to the bit with the bus.
That's what you do get a number of scenes like that, Sam, and that's a great example of one. But unfortunately, then it's undercut by maybe it's not this doesn't happen every scene, but this scene in particular, and it's undercut by the lead antagonist, and the only way I can describe it, his rigid acting, because, like you said, you see her hand hovering over this sharp blade cutting a roast, and she's contemplating it. He then proceeds to stand up, never breaking his fucking eye contact with her, walks around the table, and then just stands arm's length from her. Now all that's fine, but there's nothing conveying what he's trying to do, and it feels somewhat like the only way I can describe it is it feels like they're rehearsing a play but for camera, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's like a stage actor and he's not used to acting on camera.
It's a bit stagey, isn't it? You have this. I don't know if both of you noticed this, but she takes her wedding ring off. That's why he stands up, because she sits and looks at him and takes her wedding ring off and puts it on the table. That's before she picks the knife up, and that's why he gets up and walks around, because he's like, obviously the subtext is, well, you've killed my brother, so obviously I'm leaving you. I didn't notice that. He's speechless, so he can't quite, and he just starts to walk around the table to presumably try and give her a hug and say, no, we still love each other, even though I'm 45 years older than you. We still love each other. I knew your grandfather. Forgive me. And then that's when she stabs him, but more out of a get away from me. You killed my brother. You're a bad guy.
I had no idea about the ring. I had no idea.
Again, it's a bit grainy, and the images maybe not sharp. It's easier to miss these things, but it's just a hand movement. You can't really even make out the ring, but that's what she's doing. She's taking her ring off and putting it down while locking eyes with him.
Yeah.
So it's actually quite a well done scene, Ross. But I can totally see. I think this guy is quite stiff and quite stagey, and
he's quite a well. I mean, I think he was he did about 30 silent movies in Germany before he moved over. He was the first.
I believe that.
Silent movie eyebrows, hasn't he?
He did he had a very expressive face. I mean, this is extraordinary. He was born in 1898, right, in Austria-Hungary, and he served in. Oh, it gets better.
And he rose the ranks in the Third Reich.
No, Second Reich. He served in World War One. He served in the Austro-Hungarian army in World War One. Like this,
were they the goodies or the baddies?
Well, they were still the baddies, Ross, but they weren't the Nazis. Basically,
they weren't the Nazis. They were the Germans, but they were the baddies. Yeah. So I just think
they were the Germans, but they weren't the Nazis. There's an important distinction there.
What's up, guys? Welcome to History Cast with your nerds, Sam and Dave. Take it away, boys.
Right, let's talk about it. We've been talking all day about the Italian front. It's absolutely fascinating. Ross, strap in for hour 6 of our history podcast. But so what? I'm defending him
about how deeply ugly so many people in this movie are.
Oh, yeah.
And some of that
Crime
is
work.
definitely the holdover from silent movies, where like you kind of didn't really want just loads of like bland Chris Hemsworth types who just look exactly like all of the other leading men,
just like me. Yeah,
you know,
I get it.
No,
I get it.
we would be 1936 stars. That's a face you could.
You look like a cancer-ridden Zach Braff, Sam.
That is a really, really good shout.
Wow, Ross.
Zach Braff, crackhead.
You look like the chemo treatment is not going well for you.
You did not hold back there, and I appreciate that.
I had that chambered. I had that.
Have you been thinking about that for a while?
I had that cocked. I had that ready, just waiting for it. Waiting for that. I was ready to shoot that silver bullet.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where to go from there. I'm trying to think of comparisons that I could level on you. I mean,
Ross Kemp, except less fit.
I was going to say a diminutive, fatter Vin Diesel.
That's good. I don't know what diminutive means though.
You're short.
Small.
You're a short man.
And Dave, I think just to round it out, I think we'll go for like a 19. Someone who a 19.
He looks like Doc Brown in his mid-20s when he hits the crack pipe. Just the hair.
I tell you who I legitimately.
Hold on. Let me process.
That documentary filmmaker. What's his name?
Michael Moore.
I do look legitimately. If I wear a hat, I look dead ringer for Michael Moore.
Oh, I'd like to see that. Sam, you're muted, buddy.
We can't hear you at all, man.
Sam's done. You know what, Sam? You could have a career in silent movies. I think you're a lot more palatable without the audio.
Get that guy in the pictures. You can play a bad guy.
Who's this movie star that's suddenly joined the podcast, guys?
This is going to kill it in the audio form, isn't it? It's us talking over Sam as we can't hear him on the podcast.
This is delicious. Oh my!
I'm back. There we go.
Oh, never mind.
Just like that, his career's over. That reedy voice. No, it's not going to work for me.
Hi there, it's me.
It's me, Sam.
Anyway,
maybe a proto Pee Wee Herman in the 40s.
What I was going to say, Dave, is I think for me, you've got a vibe of they'll be pouring autopsies on you when they raid the cult compound. You know, as some kind of like follower of and that's where I'm going with that. But anyway, I think that does take us to the end of this slightly longer than we anticipated podcast about a movie from 1936. It's an hour and 16 minutes long. But I am glad that we watched it. I'm glad that we've explored this, and now we can go back to whatever comes next. Probably something shit that Ross is going to pick.
What is next?
No, Ross's picks are all by complete accident, like 7 weeks away.
Yeah, you guys are gonna you're gonna suffer.
We are watching Enemy at the Gates next week, which is another
cool.
Sam recommend.
Wow.
And then we're watching Sunset Boulevard, which is another 40s movie.
Dave looks like he's at home in a caravan park with a tinfoil hat spouting conspiracy theories. He's got that look about him. The glasses, the shoddy beard. It just came to me. Sorry, guys. Yeah, we're doing Enemy at the Gates next week.
Enemy at the Gates and Assassinating David's Looks.
I like it. This is a good place to be for a podcast. Enemy of the Gates is a good movie. It's a very good movie. So,
spoilers.
Well, stay tuned for next week to see what we think of it.
Hang fire, yeah.
Yeah.
Join the Discord.
Join the Discord. Do it, please.
Link in the description in the bio, wherever.
It's literally just the three of us still at the moment. So if you join, you will be the first person.
Don't make it sound totally pathetic. What we've done is essentially moved our WhatsApp chat into 5 different threads with different topics.
Anyone to interact with beyond these two, please.
We created more work.
Please. Don't leave me alone with this thing. I can't take it anymore.
I'm sorry, Ross. I'm sorry, but yeah, you are stuck with us now for eternity. But maybe we can farm our listenership for some sweet Patreon money.
God.
We'll need it to.
I cannot wait for that first Patreon check. God, with compound interest? Are you kidding me?
That's it. There we go.
Oh, that was a bit of a struggle.
Uh-oh.
Let's get out fucking my microphone. What's going on with it? I think
My audio might be fucked.
Fucking hell, Dave. A diminutive fucking fatter